we I've decided to take a detour from what we looked at last time. We've been looking at inspiration, methodology, um, but since the meetings in France, I've been trying to go over that history to understand it, and this has brought me to where we are now. So we're just going to discuss things that we're familiar with um, as a way to refresh and to try and come up to speed with what's being presented. So we'll begin with Daniel 11, verse 40. So for this discussion, I'm going to ask for you know everyone's input so that we can make progress. So if anyone can see or has their Bible open, could you please read for us Daniel 11:40?
I can read for you, Marshall.
Thank you for that.
And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him, like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over.
Okay. Then I'll switch to the next quotation. Okay, could someone read for us the first line of that quotation?
I'll read that for you. We are living in the time of the end. The fast fulfilling signs of the times declare that the coming of Christ is near at hand. Did you want me to read the next sentence?
You could close with that. The days in which we live.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are solemn and important. The Spirit of God is gradually but surely being withdrawn from the earth. Plagues and judgments are already falling upon the despisers of the grace of God. The calamities by land and sea, the unsettled state of society, the alarms of war are portentous. They forecast approaching events of the greatest magnitude.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have two passages we've read, one from the Bible, one from the Spirit of Prophecy. Um, and I think as we can all see, Daniel and Ellen White speak or identifying two different things. And what two different things can we see?
That the day of the Lord is close at hand.
Okay. That's part of it, but I want us to think about the terms they use. So, time of the end. Let's think of time of the end. Daniel identifies this as what? Let's see. I'll start picking on my participants. Um, Anyone from Daniel? How does Daniel view this?
The king of the north and the king of the south will clash at the time of the end.
Okay. Yes, and be a bit more specific about the time of the end.
And at the time of the end.
Who disappeared?
1798.
Okay. So Daniel says at so Daniel is marking a point. Is that so? He says at the time of the end, you're going to see a battle between the king of the north and the king of the south. Are we all agreed? From what we've just read?
It's the king of the south and the king of the north, not the king of the north. Because the first player to activate is the king of the south.
Okay. I mean, are we in agreement that he's saying at the time of the end there's a battle with the king of the south and the king of the north?
Yes.
Okay. And then Ellen White, when we read Ellen White, how does she view the time of the end?
1798. After the French Revolution. 25
Okay.
years.
Let's not let's not think about the dates, but think about how she's viewing it. Daniel has said at the time of the end, and then Ellen White. Could someone else contribute?
Hi, Marshall.
Yes, Ignatius.
Okay. I think Ellen White is looking at this story from an internal perspective. Well, he is seeing. I mean, she's seeing calamities that are happening in land and sea, and she doesn't speak about this, the battle between these two. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Marshall,
With a different thought.
Marshall, I think she's not seeing it as a point in time like Daniel. Daniel seems to say at the time of the end, like it's a specific time. And Ellen White
Yeah.
saying we are living in the time of the end, like it's a period. It is a period.
Okay. So yes, that's what I wanted us to think of. So if let's do this. Daniel will highlight this as at the time of the end, something's going to happen between the king of the south and the king of the north, which is this battle. And then Elenite will identify that we are living in the time of the end. So she's not looking at this point, but rather she's looking at this being a period. Are you okay with that? Okay. So if we are to go with whether Daniel or Ellen White, you can look at the time of the end um, from it as a point. You can also look at it from Ellen White's perspective, which is a period. And what's important then is this helps you to this gives you two perspectives of um, for example, in this subject, the time of the end. That being said, when we then come to our history, um, when do we mark the time of the end?
When you say our history, you mean our time at the end?
Our time of the end.
From the start of the
Yes.
last generation,
Yes.
1980.
That's 1989. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to rub this off. So we mark our time of the end as 1989. And what happened in 1989? What do we mark as the fulfillment of that?
The downfall of communism, the Berlin Wall.
Okay. But for us to get to 1989 and the fall of the Berlin Wall, would need to go back and trace the development of events up to 1989. What contending powers existed before 1989 that lead up to this event? Leon, are you able to speak?
I will come back to you.
Okay. Titus?
I am thinking we have the battle between the king of the north and king of the south, which lead to that event.
Okay. Can we be more specific as the two contending powers in world history before 1989?
Communism, USSR,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know what to say purposely in the United States. I don't know too.
Okay.
Capitalism.
Thank you for that. So before 1989, you have, sorry, you have the USA fighting against the Soviet Union, and this is identified as a Cold War. What type of world was this? If you have two powers that are contending, two great powers that are contending in the world, how do historians view them? What type of world are you living in?
A divided.
Bipolar.
A bipolar world. Thank you for that. Who said that?
Multilateralism.
You have a
Confusion.
bipolar world. And just going back before 1945, what did the world look like in terms of these contending powers? Was it just one, two, three, or there were many? My class is quiet this morning. Is it because my questions are not clear, or something else is happening?
Or they don't know the answer.
Okay,
I would say it's
1945.
yeah.
1945. Before 1945, there's a 6 year period. Uh, I didn't want to teach. I wanted us to walk through this because I think we're able to call up these histories.
Yeah, I would say in the Second World War, you've got multi powers in Europe vying for dominance, I guess. Obviously, Germany is the one that's catapulted it all into chaos. But yeah.
So you have the Allies and the Axis, but there are many powers. It's not one or two powers. Could we agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a multipolar world where you have Germany, you have Japan, you have the USA, you have the Soviet Union, you have which other powers were there? Britain, France. So you have these multiple powers which make up what would call a multipolar system. So, but then we see in World War II that World War II. World War II happens, and we come up to 1945, where Germany is defeated, and then you have the world change. Society changes because now you have two powers, the USA and the Soviet Union, enter into a Cold War. And can we see any similarities with the USA and the Soviet Union in terms of their thinking, in terms of their ideology?
Yeah, they both want to rule the world, isn't it?
Okay. They all wanted to dominate. They had that mindset. But then when you come to 1989, and then the Berlin Wall falls, um, and then we have the Soviet Union fall up to when do we conclude that fall?
91.
91. So you have uh, you have complete fall. You have the complete fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. So what type of world do we enter into?
Unilateralism.
Please confirm you can see.
You on about a new world order?
No, just confirm if you can see what I'm writing on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's a bad color. Okay. So from 1989 coming down to our time, let me just say up to say 2000s, early 2000s, you have a different type of world order, which would call it the unipolar world. Who becomes the leading figure in this world?
King of the North.
Let's speak in terms of nations because we've been talking about nations.
USA.
The USA.
Deutschland.
The United States of America emerges as the leading power because there's no contender when the Soviet Union collapses, and the environment that had been created in the world was that it was now a safe environment for the US to rise and then begin to advocate for democracy across the world. Do we know how nations were looking like in this time period in terms of democracy? The statistics. We can use Google if we can.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, the question is, do we, okay, how did the world look like in terms of nations? Were nations democracies from 1989, let's just say up to 91? What did the world look like in terms of democracy?
I googled it. Started to change in 91 for some countries, but not all. Like later on, Africa, I think, probably started in 91 as well. Other countries a bit later, Latin America maybe 80s. Some of this from my own head, but some of it's googled.
Okay, so
What about this nation started to act unilaterally, independently of themselves?
okay, let's go with what Natalie has just highlighted. Is that Natalie?
Yeah.
Okay. So what you'll see is from 1989, in terms of statistics, the world wasn't, most nations were not democracies. And this gave opportunity for the United States to begin to champion liberal democracy because in this period, there's no contending power, there's no alternative to stop that from happening. And the USA goes on to begin this work of spreading democracy across the world. You also then see how historians mark, let me just erase this. Historians mark from here, from 1989 onwards, a liberal international order. Because the environment is now safe enough, the environment is now conducive enough for the USA to begin to push and champion democracy. Historians begin to mark that you have come to the end of history. For example, I don't know if we've come across a Francis Fukuyama who wrote a book called The End of History and Man, around about the 91, 92 time period. Actually, in 1989, he published an article titled The End of History. And if you listen to Fukuyama, he traces the development of society and the organization of society from, he goes back as far as the French Revolution, and then he picks up from Hegel. And he says, when we got to 1989, history as we knew it had come to an end. The way human beings organize and society is organized and is governed had reached its peak. This is why he published that book termed The End of History and Man. And I find that interesting because he's quoted by a lot of political scientists and historians around this time period from 1989 coming to our history. And he also speaks about this liberal international order. Now, for this liberal international order to function, let's go slightly back to this bipolar period, this Cold War era, where the world was divided into two. If you think about the US and the Soviet Union, they had organized themselves and they had also regional influence. And do we know, or I would like us to recall, do we remember how the Soviet Union was organized?
Referring to satellite states.
I'm referring to. Okay, I'll give away the answer, but in terms of their region, how was? Oh, okay. Let me try and rephrase this. For this to happen, what I mean by this is this history. For the liberal international order to be successful, the work should have been done before. For example, by the USA. The USA began to establish or develop, together with allies, institutions. And my question was going there to these institutions. That's what I was essentially trying to do. That you had, for example, the USA had allies, and in terms of security, what institution do they have, or did these allies come into or fall under?
NATO.
NATO. And then on the other end, with the Soviet Union, they also had
Marshall, sorry, I don't know if you're writing. We can't see anything new on the board. We just got 1989 and 1991.
oh, okay.
Did you just write something?
I've written a lot.
Because we've got the line with multipolar, bipolar, but nothing else after that. I don't know. We can't see it.
There's a type of V under 1991.
Yeah, this is the V under 1991.
Let me
refresh, perhaps. Yeah.
refresh. Sorry about that.
That's it. All the additional stuff's turned up now.
Okay, can we see what I'm writing now?
No, I can't. I can't see the board at all.
Oh, we can see the board. We can see liberal international order and unipolar and USA in green.
So,
and
so
you're
what's
scribbling.
happening with mine then? How come I can't see it?
I don't know. What can you see, Cedri?
I can just see Marshall.
There must be some. Are you on the phone?
Yeah.
You probably have to swipe across to see the board.
Oh.
He's spotlighted.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I got it.
That's all right. No, it's all
Thanks.
Right. Yeah, we can see now, Marshall, I think. You've just got liberal international order. Yeah.
Okay. So we looked at these institutions. We're talking about these institutions. So the USA, NATO, and its allies. What about the Soviet Union?
Can you reframe the question, Marshall? I don't think people understand what you're saying. Me, anyway.
Okay. My question's around how the Soviet Union and the USA organized, and particularly with their friends or within their regions. And we're looking at, for example, security, and then the next thing would have been like the economy, because that then helps us with understanding the liberal international order and how it would function. So my question was, with the US, at a security level, they had allies, and then they entered into the NATO and established that. What about the Soviet Union? We're just comparing the two, the US and the Soviet Union, in terms of security, and then in terms of economy. That's where we're going.
Are you asking how America sort of went forward, like, yeah, or are you asking how just other allies and Russia?
I'm asking now about the Soviet Union, because the US, we've identified that they were allied and formed NATO. What about the Soviet Union?
If I recall, like, I think they went into a treaty.
Mm-hmm.
I recall, can't remember the name of it, but they went into a treaty, I think, in 91 with America or with whoever.
Before 91. We can use Google. This is why I said it would be helpful if we all contribute, and we can also use Google. Then we can move forward. Is that okay?
Hi, Marshall.
Yes.
So I think maybe your question is not so clear. Are you talking about a an alternative alliance that Russia went into for security reasons, just like how America had
Yeah.
NATO?
Yes, I think you got what I was trying to express.
Okay. I don't know the answer. I was just asking the question.
I understood what you was trying to express, but I didn't know the answer. I'll probably kick myself when you say it though.
Okay, okay. All right. Um if
It's the Warsaw Pact.
yes, the Warsaw Pact. All right. So it's the Warsaw Pact. That's what I was looking for. Um, and generally, you'll find that these two had their regional influence and regional institutions. Um, but you'd also see, for example, key institutions that arose out of this history. For example, after 1945, after World War II, what key institution would you say came up since the world did not want to have a repeat of World War II?
The United Nations.
United Nations. In terms of, so the United Nations would cover, let's just say for now, security. What about in terms of the economy or how markets would operate?
Yeah, it was called the Marshall Act. I just thought that was funny. It's about the economy. That happens sometime.
Okay.
I'm not sure, Marshall. I'm just trying to Google, but was it the International Monetary Fund, the IMF?
Yes, you have the IMF, you have the World Bank, you have
You have the Marshall Plan in 48.
no.
Has he gone, Emma?
He froze and then he disappeared. He's back.
Don't know what happened there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think he froze.
Sorry
I think
about
he
that. I
froze. It's
think
probably just went
I
off.
just froze and
Yeah,
was cut
it
off.
went off.
Can you confirm you can see my screen now?
Yeah, it's on there.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Yes.
we're looking at key institutions and we're identifying that before 1989, you have institutions like the United Nations that come up. You have the IMF, World Bank, World Trade Organization. And then you come to the time of the end, 1989, and the two contending powers, one has been defeated, the Soviet Union, which collapsed. And when it collapsed, they struggled to rebuild the economy. Uh, and this gave opportunity for, and not only did the Soviet Union collapse and Russia began to try and rebuild themselves, but the influence they had also in the Eastern European countries crumbled because each nation began to speak for themselves, decide for themselves, and say, we want to follow, for example, democracy. And this environment is now conducive for the United States, uh, who is the leader or the leading power, to go about and champion uh, champion liberal democracy and then create this liberal international order.
So the Sixth Kingdom was for the Liberal International Order, and because it was the USA that was against the Liberal International Order. So what would you say? Just the Seventh Kingdom. How would you because the Liberal International Order was opposed, and there was the attack at 2001, 9/11, which was because of this Liberal International Order.
I wouldn't have an answer for that now because I've not considered that, but I've been
It must be more evidence for the Seventh Kingdom. Start to pick up momentum.
Richard, sorry, could you repeat your question? Sorry, I didn't understand.
The Liberal International Order, the Sixth Kingdom was for that. Because, like, unipolar USA. But then the Liberal International Order was opposed from an entity from the USA.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe what we could do is just write it down, and then I could look at it outside this study. Maybe I'll have an answer, maybe I won't. But for now, I can't comment on that one. If that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mean to deviate you from your study or anything.
Okay. So, well, I was now speaking about this, that the USA is now championing democracy from 1989 onwards, whilst Russia rebuilding and the former Soviet countries are also joining blocks like NATO. They're also joining the IMF, the World Trade Organization, and these institutions that were there before 1989 also made it easier, or were supposed to supported or helped the USA with this liberal international order. Because, for example, if you take a country like China, China joined the World Trade Organization uh, earlier than Russia. And America had recognized that if you're going to have this order in the world, it's you need other nations on board, and you'd also need to have you need to be in agreement and also have rules around how we're going to manage um, this system. So these institutions also played a part in how the liberal international order would rise and develop in our time period. This doesn't mean to say that there wouldn't be any challenges that would be associated with trying to do this, because remember, nations have their sovereignty, and they had their own thoughts. So you'll find historians are already identifying that, yes, you have the liberal international order ascending or rising, but it's going to be faced with challenges. It's going to eventually come to an end, because it can only run for a certain period of time and then stop.
Like the League of Nations.
I'm not sure about that, but
well, it was created for world peace, but it wasn't able to prevent aggressive actions from independent nations. So the idea was good, but it wasn't able to come through with keeping world peace. That's why it transitioned to the UN.
Oh yes, yeah. From that, from what you're saying, I would say yes. So it would be very important to also consider that another question to think about or to consider is, if the world was to consider, how far would have this order gone? Or should the world have, then what would things look like? And I came up. So whole world for a long time. It was for a period of time, and then changes happen around the world that would then influence how things look and how nations and societies are governed. Did my screen stop again? Okay.
You did freeze up for a little bit there, yes.
Okay. I'll just speak to an example of this.
Where's my brother?
Are we still able to see my board?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So if we look at this 30-year period from 1989 to 2019, this is where you have a rise in liberal democracy across the world. You have the US championing that. You also have the world working together in terms of the economy and security. But a point or a period of time would begin to happen, or changes would begin to happen amongst society because, for example, if you go to the year 2008, the world went into a recession in terms of economy. And questions around how we deal with shared problems would impact how this order would continue. Questions around how we deal with conflicts would also happen because remember, when the USA is advocating for liberal democracies, if you look at administrations from Bush Senior, they all were seemingly speaking of one language, and this language of having democracies across, but challenges would happen, especially, for example, with the Middle East and how America would respond and deal with the nation. And that also had its challenges. So you have shared or common problems. I'm not marking this under 1989. I'm just writing it down as a point. Shared problems. You have climate change. You have 2008. What did we say about 2008? We had the recession. What other shared problems do we have? If I think of another one, I'll put it there. Oh, let me put Middle East. I'll just put it as the Middle East crisis. Yeah.
Falling birth rates.
Yep. Let's do this. Let me put it.
ISIS. Well, okay, it's the Middle East.
Middle East, yeah.
Right, yes, okay.
Which one was that on birth rates?
Falling birth rates.
Okay, falling birth rates. Okay, so this list is not exhaustive, but these are some of the things that I think we can identify that climate change, falling birth rates, the 2008 recession, the Middle East crisis.
Marshall, can I just clarify? Sorry, what falling birth rates is that the implication that there's less people in the country, therefore there's less money coming in because there's less people to work? Is that the logic of why it's a problem?
Positive.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the other? Is there another part, or it's not important?
Yeah, it's not very important right now.
Okay.
Can I just ask something as well on that? Does that means that there's more people dying than there is being born, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. So these and other problems would then lead up to historians seeing that there's going to be a problem with the liberal international order. It's not going to be as successful as, or it wouldn't continue to rise. It would then have to come to its end or to its fall. And you can see, for example, with the US, before up to Obama, all the administrations spoke about the same thing, democracy and leading it. But when you come to 2016, what was Trump's message? Around championing
America first.
Democracy.
Economy.
Did someone say something?
He was focusing on the economy and the people. Was it?
Yes.
And the deep state.
But what was his thoughts about the rest of the world?
America first.
Second place to America.
Excuse me, just a...
His thoughts opposed the liberal international trading system.
Okay, so Trump is not going to, he's not going to speak like the former presidents that champions or advocates for democracy. He's thinking about America first, and the rest of the world can deal with their own problems. So you have Trump there. What happens with, for example, the allies of the US in the West, Europe? Think about Britain, England.
You mean Brexit?
Brexit. Because there was growing what here? What were people for what the leaders were saying that, or they felt that they had been neglected and their views, they're not being taken care of.
Wasn't Brexit just to weaken Europe? Or was that... I think it's just to weaken Europe, wasn't it? So the Southern Kingdom can put in its next plans.
Brexit, I'll say the British people felt that they were not being considered, and they then decided to come out of the EU because the EU is a regional, like we had mentioned before, that you'd have these regional alliances, regional orders, but on top of that, you'd have the international order. So 2016, you see that happening. And you also see, for example, in most of the European countries, a change in the politics. What began to rise around about this time period?
The far right militia groups.
Marshall, are you writing? Sorry, we can only see Trump under 2016. There's no more writing. Have you been writing?
Yes, I wrote something. Okay, let me.
Oh, that's it. I see Brexit now.
Okay. So what began to happen in the politics around in Europe, Western Europe, in this time period? I'll give you an example. 1989, yeah, we said what marked our time of the end? It was the fall of what?
The Berlin Wall.
Berlin Wall. If you fast forward from here, 2017, what happens in Germany?
You mean it shifted to right wing, or
Mm-hmm.
can't remember the thing that happened, but I remember something.
Yes.
Shifted.
What's the party called?
The something CFC. Oh,
Something
what
for
are they called?
Dutchland.
Yeah.
If I remember it, I'll say it. But you see, the rise of these far right parties. Going in that direction. So this is all going to affect or influence how
The AFD.
AFD. Yeah.
And then
So
immigration policies.
Sorry?
And then they started on the immigration policies. Immigrants.
Yes. So you see that these problems, excuse me, just a minute. What's wrong? Okay, so
If you point and moving, your point is moving on the screen.
can you see the screen?
Yes.
See me writing here?
Yes.
Okay. So from 2016, coming down, you see that you are going to start seeing changes in politics, particularly around the leading nations, those that have been champions of democracy. And this historians could see that this is what they had been saying, that yes, the liberal international order would rise, but then because of the challenges that you see with nations, it would also then begin to decline or to fall.
Marshall, can I
And
just
this,
add something there? I
yeah,
just looked at the AFD and it says the AFD started in 2013 as an anti-Euro academic protest party. So that it was nationalistic, but it started and its popularity surged following the European refugee crisis. So it seems like immigration is a catalyst for these parties to rise. And to me that seems to be rooted in nationalism in the sense that we want to protect our own nation, make Germany great, make America great, whatever,
yeah,
protect our own first, like everybody does, I guess, on a family level and then on a nation level. And
yeah,
all these refugees are coming in from outside who are foreigners and taking over our country, that whole mindset. And when you
yeah,
asked before about how we could stop that happening, it seems like that the world needed to see itself as one nation, one world together, not just Europe or just America or just Europe and America, the West, and then they ignore the other countries because obviously all those things you put at the beginning of the line affect everybody. But we don't care, for instance, about a tsunami over in Thailand or somewhere because we don't live there and we don't care about those people. So if we
yeah,
saw that as a relative or however we phrase it, part of us, an extension, they're just over there, but they're part of us, then we'd have to, like Obama saying, we need to look after other people because ultimately it has a knock on effect on everyone. So you are looking after yourself when you look after everyone, but we don't see it that globally. So that whole thing about immigration, people not being accepted because we don't identify with other people and cultures as part of humanity in that sense, seeing humanity as a whole. Yeah.
yes, yes. And if we look at, for example, that immigration crisis that you've just highlighted, Emma, it's also partly as a result of this crisis in the Middle East, uh, particularly around Europe. So it would put pressure on the EU and the European nations. And there's a lot more, like we're saying, but historians will say you could see that this liberal international order would eventually come to its decline.
King of the South pops its head up around that time as well, doesn't he? Again, Raffia, is that 1819?
Yes, you could highlight also that Russia comes back with Putin rebuilding the economy and then joining the World Trade Organization and then also becoming an influence. And there's a lot. But that being said, where was I going?
It was going to the end, all the way.
I was coming to, okay, let's, can someone open Daniel 11 verse, oh, not Daniel 11, Daniel 12 1.
Okay, do you want that read?
Yes.
And at the time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book.
Okay, so Daniel 12 begins with, and at that time Michael should stand. If we think about Daniel 12 1, where would you mark that phrase? And at that time, is there a period before, or is there a passage before that verse that speaks about time? Or, and at that time, would Michael stand up?
Wouldn't we say that's COP?
Yes, would mark it as COP.
But it's got to be at the end of a dispensation. Like the Sunday law dispensation.
Okay. Or maybe I've asked this again.
Marshall, are you asking what events lead up to that in the verses? So is it the
Yeah.
end of the King of the North? The King of
Yes.
the North comes to its end.
The King of the North comes to its end. We
And-
could look at it from that perspective. We could also look at it at from another perspective, which is which would be that 12:1 can't be separated from the events that happened before it, which are mentioned from, for example, verse 40. And then those events would then lead up to Daniel 12:1. Some would argue that 12:1 and at that time would be pointing you back to verse 40, which is and at the time of the end. But we have two ways of seeing the time of the end. We could see it as a point, which is 1989, but we could see it also as a period of time. So I would see it as a period of time because you have events that happen that lead up to that event, which is Michael standing up. And from what was presented in France, I'm inclined to follow that the liberal international order, which began in 1989, would run all the way through up to 2026, as we've identified from the presentations in France. I know there's a lot I've missed. There's a lot I haven't covered because of the time I had, but I hope this is sufficient enough for us to think about this and consider where we are and how we've arrived at where we are.
Marshall, can I just ask you if you think that we've got to that place where Michael stood up? Or are we saying, even though we're saying closure probation, are we saying this is like a point period in the sense of Sunday law marked the kind of Seventh Kingdom turning bad, but we see it escalating after that to get more bad, if you're going to say it like that. But that's the point we mark as a transition. So we're transitioning, marking that the overthrow of the LIO, the international liberal international order, but we can see that it's a progressive kind of work of continually overthrowing it or show actions that show that it's been overthrown. I guess I'm asking you, do you think Michael stood up?
I'm inclined to follow that this liberal international order is fallen. It's come to its end. It hasn't. It won't continue beyond 2026 because it's run its course in history, and then what I believe is something has to take over because if life is to continue, humanity is to continue, then a system with its rules, with how human rights operate and how economies function, then have to take over from there because we don't have anything now. It's
Although we
it's
could
a
argue
problem.
other people are still standing up to fight for it, so it's not completely being thrown under the bus except by Trump. I don't know if that's how we could argue it. And I was wondering if you think that the King of the North has come to its end, because if we're going to mark that as the same event as Michael standing up, and at this time, when the King of the North comes to his end and none shall help, are we at that point yet, or is this an escalation from here?
Okay.
I think that's my question. I'm not saying you have the answer.
Okay. I don't have the answer to.
Can I just mention something, please?
Yeah, sure. Please.
Yeah.
I really think if you look deeply into the national security strategy of Trump's that Blessing talked about, and you look deeply into that, you can, for me, I've come to the agreement that it was the end of the world that we know it, and it was, for me, I think it definitely was the close of probation.
Thank you for that, Natalie.
Can you see hands, Marshall?
No, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I
think I forgot what I wanted to say.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gone.
Okay.
But yes, yeah, I think I remember now. I think LDM asked about the King of the North coming to his end, and this week on Tuesday, I think Elder Paminda, even though he didn't get into detail, he did highlight that the close of probation is actually verse 42 and 43. So the King of the North taking Egypt, that is the fulfillment of 2026. Okay. At least the waymark that we identify as the close of probation. When Egypt is taken, Egypt being the world, and the world being defined as this liberal international order or system. So even though we haven't actually gotten into a conversation about it, I think it would mean that verse 44 comes after the close of probation, and by implication, the end of the King of the North is after the close of probation, not at the close of probation, as a point, because we have many models, I think, that teach that the close of probation is the point where this king reaches the height of their power. They think they are invincible. They think they are above everyone and everything. So even though in the past he was taught that verse 44 was the Sunday law history, I think it actually is the close of probation history, and verse 45 being the conclusion of that dispensation. So I guess to answer Emma's question, the King of the North has not come to his end yet. It's a developing story. That's what I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing to Blessing? Are you saying that it's at its zenith point then? Verse 42 is the King of the North at its zenith point?
Yes, because the king has conquered everything.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
So does anyone else have a question, comment, contribution before we close?
Just to thank the God of heaven for this study. I've been blessed.
Okay.
I just wanted to say one last thing. I think the point that Blessing said about the way the verses have gone and the way we were taught in the past, I think without the presentations we've had recently, I think we would have just been waiting to see verse 45 and just walk through the close of probation without even knowing. So I am blessed to realise we're only at 42 as well. Thank you. Blessing.
Okay. So can we close the prayer now?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Shall we pray? Dear God, we thank you that we've been able to consider the time that we live in and the histories that have developed living up to where we are. And as we continue the work of trying to understand these developments, these events, help us, dear Lord, to see what you'd have us learn and to also walk in that light. I pray that as we break for lunch, that you might lead us as we'll have our lunch and as we'll fellowship one with another. May your blessing continue to be with us in the Sabbath, for we've prayed for these and many other blessings in Jesus' name. We do pray, saying, Amen.